This episode is brought to you by Fiona Dickinson. Stephen,
Andrew.
fancy spending a quiet night inside number 9?
100%.
So we're going into Curse of the Ninth, which is Series 9, Episode 5, directed by Guillaume Morales, produced by Steve Ride, written by Rhys Shearsmith and Steve Pemberton, and it first aired on Wednesday, the 5th of June, 2024. Yeah. You've just been scribbling down a quick synopsis. Do you fancy starting with that?
You throwing me straight under the bus with this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I completely dropped the ball on that this week.
You mean you had something other to do than put 3 hours aside?
Other things to do this week. Yeah.
Okay, so Jonah Quigley is called to a house to tune a piano, something he's done many, many times before. Little does he know that this piano belonged to one of his idols, and whose fate was about to become intertwined with his very own.
Ooh. Very nice.
Thank you.
Literally just wrote that.
Did you watch me write it?
I was watching you write that. Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, so initial thoughts before we jump into sort of going through scene by scene?
A grower. I think.
Grower. Yeah.
Wasn't enamoured initially. I don't know why. I don't know whether it was just sort of a bit abrupt, or almost like they almost tried to cram too much in. But actually, watching it again, possibly in a better frame of mind than the first time I watched it.
Didn't you also fall asleep the first time?
I did. I was feeling unwell. I'd forgotten it was on, and this feels awful to say. But yeah, I was feeling unwell and a bit dozy, and about 2/3 of the way through, I think I must have dropped off. Which, I mean, that's not the fault of the episode, especially having watched it again. So that might explain why I wasn't initially enamored by it, because I was kind of lost. But no, I was, watching again. I think there's an awful lot here, and I think there's some things it says. It's good.
Yeah. No, I thought that was a nice
ghost story,
horror. Yeah, exactly. Sort of cursey story.
Cursey story.
A cursey story. Like, I was struck by the fact that it felt less claustrophobic than other episodes, because it was more expansive, because you went outside, you went through different rooms in the house. And
does this house look familiar?
I was thinking Psychoville vibes.
Does it belong to the guy in Psychoville? Is it his?
That's really interesting, because I was wondering that. Yeah. The Beanie Babies.
Yeah. That would have been great. That would have been a great little crossover, wouldn't it? If Jonah had gone into a cupboard and it was just full of Beanie Babies. And the servant was Tea Leaf. Yeah, so that was it. And even with moving outside of time as well, because there was a flashback in it, and obviously the beginning is like a period before the episode is set. So, quite a long time, judging by the state of decomposition that's happened
absolutely,
in the meantime.
Yeah. There's got to be a year or more, probably.
Or more. It's weirdly, it didn't necessarily feel. I didn't feel like I was watching a period piece. Weirdly, I don't know why. No. It didn't make me feel like I'm watching something set a long time ago. Even with the outfits and things, I don't know whether it was just a case of these are people who are stuck in time. They own a house like this.
Sort of the harrowing
dress. Yes.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the only other straight up gothic style horror we've seen from them.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I think Rhys is quite a fan, it's not something they've done over and over again.
No.
I guess that's the nice thing about having such a wide range of influences and interests. They don't need to return to the same thing too often.
Yeah.
But it was very much like that.
Yeah. And then shades of the understudy as well, with the sort of superstition around a creative endeavor. And it's because I think we've kind of looked at trend or patterns through series in the past and noticed like there's often an episode in a series that will be looking at the creative process or looking at the industry. And I think that's kind of what we've got here. And there's some really interesting meta stuff that could potentially mean something depending on how the series ends.
Yes.
I think there's some really interesting, allusions to, like they're talking about like the false recapitulation, and how themes come developed in a symphony and then they come back later on, and it's like, oh, you could be talking about whatever it is that we're going to see. And for a lot of people listening to this, will know how the series
exactly
ends,
what it was. This could all be garbage.
Yeah, and
completely.
And I did. My initial thought was, okay, we're not getting a sixth episode because they're not going to want to finish the symphony. They're not going to want to finish. Like what they're saying with this episode is, this no one's brave enough to complete this.
Is this a real thing? The Curse of the Ninth. It is. It is rooted in reality. Yeah, well, I say reality in the real world.
In Marla did, I think, come up with it having noticed, probably similar to the rock stars at 27 thing.
Yes.
Which is, probably at one level can be scientifically, I don't know.
There's some correlation maybe going on.
I would think so. Yeah, like in the sense of what the body does and what it's capable. Like
you've clearly been doing your thing for quite a long while when you get to your Ninth Symphony.
Yes, exactly.
And so it would only make sense that you're getting towards the end of your natural cycle anyway. And the same with the 27 Club. You live a life that full of excess. 27 is not a ridiculous age probably to for something to happen.
No, exactly.
I guess it's retrospectively looking for something.
And then once that superstition is seeded, the self-fulfilling prophecy aspect, not necessarily with the 27 thing, but you could see it if you're on edge anticipating everything's going to go wrong, then it's probably more likely to go wrong.
And that's kind of exactly how the episode starts, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's
perfect. Amazing segue work there, everyone. Almost good enough that we could let it go unnoticed, but no, you were so proud of it.
No, we've got to own those things, enjoy them, celebrate them.
So it's a dark, late night when our first character we meet is the composer, Nathaniel Burnham. Nathaniel, yes, who's frantically scribbling music notation down and drinking, and he doesn't look relaxed, does he?
He doesn't. No, it's an
cuts,
intense session.
Yeah, it's made to feel very intense. All the more so by a ghostly apparition appearing over his shoulder.
Yeah. This is a fantastic start to an episode.
Absolutely.
So, whoa, okay, we're right in there with the horror.
And I like that it kind of plays out fairly straight as well, to be honest. The only real twist when we get to it at the end really is that she gets what she deserves, kind of. That's true. There's no storytelling twist really in here, and no one's trying to wrong foot anyone. It's allowed to just kind of play out, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose like what might be construed as twists, them knowing that he's killed Devonshire,
Somerset, Kent,
Derbyshire. But then that kind of isn't a big reveal. It's just like, oh, they know. And then this being some kind of plan that they had, but it's not really played out in exactly the way that they would have expected. But it's like, it'll do.
Yeah, we've got some leverage.
Yeah, some leverage.
And I think this is, so we see the ghostly figure over his shoulder. Is it in the window reflection. We can see
it's over his
face.
shoulder first, and then the camera pans, and you see it in the.
It's pretty
window.
terrifying at first glance, and I think that's the really nice thing about this. This is one of those blinking you miss it kind of things, and that happens later as well. You don't get to have a proper look unless you grab a freeze frame of what it looks like.
Yeah,
I think that actually this is one of those things where seeing too much does undermine the horror.
It does. I got a great freeze frame of it
because he looks surprised at all times for the curse. He doesn't know how he's ended up in this situation.
Like, I don't want to be doing
this.
I am the curse. I'm here. I'm doing this.
And I think this is where, like you say, as the door starts banging and someone's trying to get in, with that thought in his mind of these sort of heightened sense of fear and threat, is where the door banging and trying to get in, he assumes is Mr. Curse.
Yeah.
And decides enough's enough.
He does. Yeah. That classic pointing the gun at the door and then under his chin. I
wonder what made him change his mind. He went from, I can take this on, to, no, enough's enough.
I can't keep doing this, maybe. Because the way that he shouted, "Leave me alone," was... Because you're either expecting a shock at this apparition behind him, and a sense of I've never seen that before, or what you get, which is leave me alone, just let me do this.
Yeah,
and this is before he's actually finished the symphony as well, isn't it? So it's the curse is already haunting him. So
it is, and I guess we get the same later, don't we? But again, so when Quigley's gone away, having done what he did, which we'll speak about in a minute, and he's already in this mindset that the curse has got him. But so much of this is actually, well, it's weird, I guess, because it sets it up as the curse being something that doesn't really do its work until it's finished, until you finish the piece. But it's there in the background, trying to torment you as you go. And maybe it's and if that's the case, then maybe if we think about when they're referencing Beethoven, Mahler, sound like David Brent listing his top comedians, Milligan, does the incredible work they produced actually come out of this torment that they're under as they're making them? Because it's either that, or you just don't hear about the ones that weren't very good and still shot themselves in the face when they were being tormented by it. Yeah, I suppose it's that becoming ill and moving closer to death through the creation of that Ninth Symphony, and whether it's the torment of the creative process or just getting old and getting a bit ill. I'm not sure exactly what the various stories are, but so we get the title appearing with some blood spatter. Very Riddler of Sphinx.
Yes, the Ninth Symphony manuscript. Yeah, very Riddle.
Very Riddle. And then there's a knock at the door.
Knock at the door. Here's Jonah.
Oh, hello. Jonah Quigley. I've come to tune your piano.
Where's your dog?
Oh, I don't have a dog.
The last fella had a dog.
Oh, well, perhaps he was unsighted. Many of my colleagues are. They have a heightened sense of hearing, which makes them ideal for the position.
Relieved himself all up and down my lady's curtains, he did.
Really? Oh, you mean the dog? Well, I can assure you I won't be doing that.
And here's Devonshire.
Devonshire.
And he doesn't have a dog.
So it's interesting. First time I watched this, all the caveats have been dealt with now about my first viewing of this.
Yeah, we don't need to go back into
I had in my head that there was far more, I don't know, farcical humour in it than I think there ended up being. I think I was very drawn to this idea that they were taking something that was really quite bleak and doing all these little silly humour bits in it. Right. And I thought that was really great. And I think I kind of overthought how much it was being done, because then when I went back again, they were just little snippets. But for some reason, I kind of got this impression that they were doing this bawdy stuff that was fun. And like I say, it was a real like juxtaposition with how bleak the episode was. But things like the dog conversation here was just absurd.
Yeah.
But I didn't ever really think about piano tuners being blind.
Yeah, it's a bit of a, I don't know if it is a kind of cliche trope. I don't know how much that is true in reality, but like it certainly it's something I've come across before. Yeah, but Jonah isn't and hasn't got a dog, and he doesn't relieve himself up and down the curtains either. So
relieved himself up and down my lady's curtains. He did. Oh, the dog. I won't be doing that. So yeah, he's taken into the study where there's the Bechstein piano. Bechstein, is that a thing? Are they a thing?
They are a thing, yeah.
They are a thing. Is there one in Buckingham Palace? I wonder.
I am not sure.
And then the bawdiness returns.
Yes.
She hasn't been fingered in a number of years. I do hope you'll be able to tighten the strings.
Yes. Yeah, there's a bit of it certainly in the, and then when he says he couldn't help but notice her bust.
Yes.
There's a bunch of that stuff in this scene, I think.
There is, yeah, I think that's where
just
I was
before you fell asleep.
Yeah, just before I drifted off. Like, this episode was all about that.
It must be full of that, yeah.
Yeah, but then also Dickie Van Ass.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And he's offered a glass of poo.
Poo.
Yeah, what's that referring to?
That's champagne. It's a posh person way of referring to champagne, I believe.
Can you explain why that is?
Shampoo. Champagne, shampoo, poo.
Shampoo and champagne are different.
They are, but I think it's a kind of a cheeky little reference to champagne, calling it champagne. I have literally just decided this as you asked, and I said champ and went poo, shampoo, poo.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's it. I think I've done my etymology bit.
Thank you. Yeah, because I was Google searching like a glass of poo, and it didn't come up with anything like that. Maybe nothing that I want to see again.
You're a few years late for that, aren't you? Gooseberry juice is the other offer.
Yes.
The other obvious offer for someone. Gooseberry juice. I didn't really understand the just water, no ice or lemon. Don't flatter yourself.
Yeah.
As though, yeah, he was assuming wrongly that they'd go to the trouble of. He was just offered a glass of champagne.
Yeah.
It's not a big stretch to assume there might be lemon in the water.
I know. I did think
no,
that, but
don't flatter yourself.
Certainly not for him, because he's the same working class as Devonshire, as we find out later. So I love that sort of setting it up, one of the sweetest sounding instruments in all of Europe, and then he starts playing it, and
she hasn't been fingered in a number of years.
It's really seen better days.
It's out of tune. Yeah, because Mrs. Byrne reveals that she doesn't play, and so she has it there really for sentimental value more than anything. And after he died, it went to seed, as did she.
Yes. Yes. And then there's that other awkward exchange there. And there's a weird kind of, they're like flirting. You know,
there is some flirtiness.
Nathaniel composed his Fifth Symphony at that very piano. Many a good tune can be played on an old piano. With that sort of double entendre.
Yeah.
And it's like flirting, but there's no chemistry. There's nothing happening. It's just it's very dry flirting.
Even the kind of pauses to let the flirty lines land almost come off as it's like dead. Almost like, I guess, with the piano note, it doesn't ring at all. It's just kind of said and then.
Yeah, that's very true.
It doesn't kind of go. It doesn't feel like any tension's built through it at all.
Yeah.
And then you didn't go to seeds that you're still most becoming. A fan of Nathaniel. I notice your bust. There's that one.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of left then. They kind of stop the little back and forths.
Yeah.
As she reveals, they kind of have a discussion around Nathaniel Burnham, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, and we learn that Jonah had aspirations to compose, but life got in the way, inspiration failed to strike. And now
that kind of comes back later, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Yeah, and then so he's left to start tuning the piano. And then, I don't know if you felt that the tension. I always find it with any tightening of strings where you're just braced for it to snap.
Snap, yeah.
Ding! Yeah, and that I suppose that I really like what you just said about that. The flirting being almost like that, tuning it up, and then you've just got a dud sort of note.
Yeah.
And that's where he finds a page of symphony, because there is a proper dud note.
I wonder why that ended up in there.
Yeah, was that part of their
plan?
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, leave him a page to find. So she's not actually that up. She's not outwardly upfront about who she is she? Until Devonshire comes back in and refers to her as Mrs. Burnham, and that's where it's kind of revealed, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's where, I mean, there's a line in there that's a bit ominous, which is that he could be violent when the muse deserted him.
Yeah.
Is that just him becoming so wound up and tormented that he's lashing out, and which is it's this weird tension between not wanting to finish it because he knows what happens if he does finishing it, but also desperate to tap into the creative process that is going to allow him to produce something great. It's like, you know that this, and if we go with the curse, we know that your ultimate achievement is what's going to kill you.
Yes, exactly.
Eventually. And
this is a choice he's made to compose this, because it's a tribute to Marla as well, isn't it? So it's not like that he's been forced to do it for like commercial reasons or something like that.
But there's a message in this episode that's not that subtly hidden, but there's a lot of stuff about that tension between the creative process and the commercial side of things, isn't there? The fact that Nathaniel does want to see this finished, and I think part of him would love to be part of seeing that finished, but there's all the reasons going on underneath as to him as to why he doesn't feel like he can or he should. Devonshire trying to steal it for completely different purposes that we get to in a second.
Yeah.
That we've got Mrs. Bauer that wants it dealt with because she could do with the cash from it, but doesn't want any part of it herself because she knows what that could lead to. The whole thing is a tension between your creative process and what you gain from it.
Who's Mrs. Bauer?
So Bauer, Burnham, Mrs. Bauer, Jack Bauer's wife.
Okay, yeah.
He'd get out of there. Give him 24 hours, not 30 minutes though.
You were dreaming.
Maybe I was. I don't know.
It's Jack Bauer's
Leave it alone.
Leave it alone. Son number 9 with Jack Bauer's wife in it. Yeah.
I've got 30 minutes to say. Used to 24 hours.
Then we go and meet Dickie Van Aers.
I love that there's like nothing particularly clever about it.
No.
Dick Van Aers.
It's just, nice, beautifully childish.
He doesn't even flinch at the name, does he?
No.
Oh, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, hello.
Who's Nathaniel's lawyer?
This is Dickie Van Aers, a dear friend of mine who was also Nathaniel's lawyer. He takes care of all my business affairs.
Of course, sir. Pleasure to meet you, sir.
How do you do?
Is this our first wrong naming?
Yeah.
Somerset.
Yeah. Which that first one it really made me laugh.
Yeah.
I laughed out loud.
This is something else that I think I overthought and thought there was more of than there actually was.
Mm.
I felt like they were doing it over and over again. There were only a few of them.
Yeah.
But it felt like it kept happening.
No, I know. I think it felt like it was on the verge of being laboured, but there was only 3. Yeah.
But that's, as we know from Stuart Lee, that after the 3, it goes downhill, but then it can go back up again later. They didn't push it that.
You probably don't have quite enough time to do that.
No. She was paying an awful lot of attention as he was describing what he'd found. And then Mrs. Burnham wants her out of the room at that point because things take a bit of a serious turn. I really, really liked Steve's delivery of the Curse of the Ninth information, like his little bit. I thought was really nice.
Yes. Yeah, his character in this is just nicely subtle. It kind of just carries things along in the background.
Subtler than his name.
Yes, very much.
That's a real punch you in the face.
It is. He names all of those who went from composing to decomposing.
Beethoven, Dvorak, Mahler.
And there's Schubert, Bruckner.
I think I liked that they spanned this story that Mahler tried to avoid it.
Yes.
He basically tried to con the curse by releasing a song cycle.
Yeah.
But it got him in the end.
And he's the one who came up with the curse in the first place. So it's like, you've come up with this thing and now you're trying to hide from it.
Yeah. Just pretend it's not a thing. And he never saw his ninth performed.
No.
That's bleak, isn't it? But this is all really recent in this period because Burnham went to Mahler's funeral, didn't he?
Yeah. That's what. So his ninth is a tribute to that when he got back from his funeral.
I mean, this is all quite. Everything's very contemporary between them. So they're all of this is. I don't know the timeline for these composers. I don't know it that well. But here we've kind of got it implied that Mahler decided the ninth curse was a thing. Mahler then tried to avoid the ninth curse by writing music and not calling it his ninth symphony, eventually deciding, or I will do one. I'll call it my ninth. Then died. While all this is going on, talk of the ninth curse is happening, and it really starts getting to Burnham. So it's all very tight in that community.
Yeah.
And if Mahler was the first one to kind of theorize that this was a thing, maybe the rest of them hadn't actually suffered the torment. So maybe the stuff about them being tormented by things wasn't really a thing anyway.
Well, if you don't know about it, then yeah, you might be tormented by other things.
Yes,
like illness and whatever. Like I suppose, just the creative pain of trying to come up with something different and under the expectation of an audience who demands amazing things.
Well, I think that's probably in reality the real curse, isn't it? Is that you would not look after yourself and you would let yourself slide probably into madness by trying to create these incredible things. And I guess that would then give rise later on to calling it a Noel Fielding lookalike. Jumping out at you in a room.
And I think this is where there's a great parallel to Inside Number 9 itself, and to, the expectation on Stephen Rees to keep delivering these amazing episodes, series in, series out, and to actually do that. And like, I think there is that other level to this episode that is just, referring almost to that.
I don't think that over the course of the 54 episodes of this that we've seen, that either of us would have minded calling out a poor episode. Genuinely, I don't think I would have had a problem. I mean, I know there was Merrily, Merrily used the phrase ham-fisted to describe the back end of that one. And that was about as bad as it's about as negative as I think we've been at any point in all of these podcast episodes or in about any of the single episodes that we've seen. I would have been happy to say that was a dud if there was one that I genuinely thought was poor. And for them to have, and this, I know I sound like the last episode's gone and we're kind of not just doing an end of season wrap up, but doing an end of Inside Number 9 wrap up. And we'll probably return to that when we do that. But I genuinely don't think that weight of expectation, I don't think it's shown, because I haven't felt disappointed by an episode at any point.
Yeah, no, I think I look at some of the responses that you see kicking around like just on social media and things from people, like seen several times, oh, this used to be great and it lost its way after the second series or something like that. And you know, as you get more and more of those sorts of things, that must be so annoying. And so, and also the weight of that then just almost in the background, like as you imagine the curse, because to me that sort of image of the curse is like this background presence that is just constantly sort of just niggling in the back of your head, and it's saying, you can't do this, you're not very good.
Well, that's the thing. If it's manifesting itself in the way that we see it with Jonah when he's trying to compose later on in the episodes, then kind of the curse is your self-doubt, isn't it? It's a just trying to pull you down.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it helps that Stephen Rees, to whatever extent it can with something like this, be helped by the fact that they have been very successful beforehand in their own right. It's not like this is a flash in the pan thing. They've got lucky with it and they've just managed to nail it. Like they've been honing this for a while. Even then though, the amount of work that's gone into the last 9 series of this, it's amazing to have. I mean, I imagine that Rees would, from the interactions I've seen Rees have with people, I think he would stand by every single episode regardless of the reaction at all. I don't think he'd take anything to heart, and I think that he would quite happily defend any episode. And I'd be interested to know from them if there has been any point where they have ever received a reaction or a review and gone, yeah, we fumbled that one a bit. I don't know if they would.
No.
But it would be interesting to know whether they have felt a way of expectation, if this is a kind of reflection of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Or whether it's just a reflection of the creative process in general, or I don't know.
But you said earlier that there are episodes in each series that do call back to things about the creative process. And if we take the Simon Says episode, where they're talking about being writers and the expectation on things they produce, there's clearly something there that they've seen happen with like Game of Thrones and gone,
it's like, that
awful
ending
when people do that.
Yeah.
So maybe they're not quite as sure of it as it kind of seems.
I guess it's because it's not necessarily that you finish an episode and then you hear from the haters and then you're like, oh yeah, they're right. It's just, oh, they're really annoying.
Yeah.
And it's not self-doubt in the sense of, oh, those people who have kind of commented on how this should have been a different ending or how we got it wrong. It's not that we're saying they have a better solution. It's just,
I wish
that
more
sort of
people
negative
enjoyed it.
Energy is, it just sort of drags you down a bit, I think.
But then I imagine they're probably their own greatest critics, and they're there, and they will throughout the creative process go, no, not good enough. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Let's try that again. And that's what they've got the time to do.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes. So where are we going next?
So we were getting the story of how affected Nathaniel was, and he attended Marla's funeral, and this is kind of then playing out the scene from the other point of view from the beginning.
Yeah.
Where
flashback.
where he's gripped by the curse. He's terrified of finishing it, and it cuts to the night of his suicide, and it turns out that it was Mrs. Burnham trying to get into the room. Not. I say obviously not, but he clearly has a physical presence.
Yeah, he's already in there.
So he's already in there. He's doing his thing in there. Weirdly, they reported it as a heart attack. They said they didn't report it as a suicide.
No.
Why do we think? Because they didn't want to tarnish his legacy? Because in that time, if a kind of a mental illness suicide may not have landed well for his legacy?
Yeah, I don't know. It's unclear, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's obviously a small... Oh, we find out after, don't we, that it was a small funeral. And he's about... We find out
in the back garden.
Out there in the back garden, 6 feet under.
With the unfinished ninth.
Yes. Yeah, we see there's some exchanges of looks here. So when I think Jonah says, so the work remained unfinished, and his kind of piquing his interest in, there's this missing symphony. And then Mrs. Burnham and Dickie exchange a look as he's saying that. And then planting all of the seeds about is that he made it clear he wanted it buried with him, and yeah.
So I'm assuming they must have vetted Quigley, and they must have found out that he was a student of his work, and they decided to call him, and this was all one big plan all along, getting him in, luring him in. But then there's a bit of a plan that they didn't think would happen, which was that Devonshire's listening intently outside the door to everything that's being said. I assume.
Yeah.
Although without her, he's not going anywhere near this.
No, exactly. And they do refer to the fact that, they say that she's greedy, so they expected her to...
Okay.
Because I think they gave her enough while she was still in the room.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
she's probably going to listen in. And then she does. And then she goes back, follows Jonah back into the piano room. Oh, Kent coming to to tell Jonah about the burial.
Pick a county, any county.
Kent.
And I guess she's kind of the comic relief, isn't she? It's scenes where she's in where there is this sort of slightly farcical comedy element.
Yeah.
And this is a very good example of that because he genuinely does not seem to have a single thought that he should go and dig him up.
No,
get involved with this. He's interested in the idea that it's there, but it doesn't. It seems beyond the pale to him that he should even consider going out, digging him up, getting hold of it until it's just kind of suggested as a thing to him. Like he doesn't.
Yeah. So that whole thing where she hands him the key to the tradesman's entrance and says, "Make your way out via the garden. Don't disturb Mrs. Burnham. She'll be asleep by 9 p.m." He's like, "Well, I'm finished now. Like, I'm not going to disturb her."
Don't trip over the gardener's spade.
In the shed.
In the shed. Why would I be in the shed?
It's not my way. Here's the key to the shed. And then, he's kind of cottoning on, but there's still like you've seen nothing to suggest that he wants to dig.
See, right?
Dig
yes.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like, it comes across. I guess Devonshire is so sort of forthright that it almost comes across as she's got something over him, but and you have to go and do this, otherwise. What's the otherwise? There is no sort of
this is
negotiation.
Come on. Let's put my plan into action that you only just found out about.
Yeah, exactly. So then we're seeing sort of a test of his character, the temptation, the allure of the enchanted object.
Does she mention why she can't just do it herself? Why does she need him? Is she just not good at digging? Is she lacking in the spade work department?
Yeah, that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because she also says she's had some offers.
So
has she only just found out about this, or?
Well, no, she must have been she must have been a house servant while he was alive, I assume, because they must have had someone. And there's no reason necessarily. So I guess she knows probably that he's been buried. But
also that he was working on his 9th symphony before he died.
Unless she works fast. I mean, unless she's been making phone calls since she overheard that call. Sorry, since she overheard the conversation in the dining room. But
yeah, so after the time, because he goes away and then comes back later, doesn't he? So there is the afternoon.
Maybe.
But, yeah.
Without the internet. That's quick work.
Yeah,
I've gone from not knowing anything about this to being in contact with people who would appreciate having. I mean, I guess she knew she worked in that house and she would have been speaking to people previously.
She might have snaffled a few things.
Yeah.
And got them to an auction house or whatever.
She doesn't have many scruples, does she?
Apparently not. No. Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so we're okay now, aren't we?
We're okay with that.
Reese, that's okay. Okay, we're allowing it. And so we then shift to the evening. Mrs. Burnham's doing this cube puzzle.
Yeah.
Really weird cube puzzle. Is it like 6 puzzles in one? I don't know.
If it is, maybe it is. That's brilliant. Yeah.
That is brilliant. Yeah. Imagine a 200-piece jigsaw puzzle like that. That's 200 little cubes, which actually gives you 6 different 200-piece puzzles. Amazing.
Just endless joy.
I might make that happen. So he's outside straight away in full view at 9 o'clock.
I love the fact. So it's like the panic is the fact that he heard 9 o'clock and he's kicking into action at 9 o'clock. You could have
just waited. Like if she goes to bed at 9, you don't start at 9.
I love that. It's such a subversive. Like the guy at the window. Oh, she's not gone to bed yet.
Yeah.
Hide. No.
No. Carry on. Crack on.
Okay. Oh, you're going to be a little while, so I'll just go and do the grave in full view of your window.
Well, and Mrs. Burnham then delivers that line. That's quite important. That a picture is not complete until the last piece goes in.
It's almost 9 o'clock, Mum.
The picture's not complete until the last piece goes in.
And she's not willing to go to bed until that last piece goes in. And that kind of sums up the end of the episode, doesn't it?
Yes,
last piece goes in, it's done. The moment she is done, this was a bit of a laugh out loud one. The moment it goes in, Devon just swipes it off. Right, we're like, get the bed.
Yeah, and just as she's saying, and this made me think.
What was she about to say?
She was saying like it's most gratifying to see all the pieces come together or whatever. And I was thinking, I imagine that there's another level or layer to the meaning of that. Like, when you create something that you're really proud of, and then it gets destroyed.
Marla didn't get to see his full piece come together because he didn't hear it, and the curse destroyed it because by killing him before he heard it. Devonshire was the curse to the puzzle. There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
And the destruction that comes from other people as well. Like obviously Devonshire just swipes the whole thing apart. And I was thinking, is that another allusion to as when you publish the thing or you show the episode of Inside Number 9, it can then get destroyed by the critics and the audience. And that sort of
that's true
feeling of that gratifying feeling where you're like, oh, I'm really proud of what we've done there.
Yeah.
Suddenly in the hands of other
critics.
people. Yeah. So then we cut to Jonah digging up. He's done very, very well with...
He's a quick digger, isn't he?
Yeah, with that little shovel.
Yeah. He says, so he hits the coffin and then opens up the coffin and says, "Forgive me."
The sound.
This is horrible. So I think there are a number of like horror moments.
Yeah.
And I think you've got the curse appearing behind Burnham to start with. You've got the gunshot. This cracking of those bones is
gratuitous,
pretty grim.
Cracking sounds, yeah.
To get the manuscript out, he's literally having to pry it from his cold, dead hands at this point. Yeah. And then Devonshire appears above the grave while he's in there, which is quite a terrifying shot while you're 6 feet underground looking up and there's someone peering over you. And that's reversed in a few minutes' time as well.
Yeah.
Quite brutally. She's got some buyers lined up. And yeah, he said, so this is where Burnham says, no, it's art. It's not merchandise.
Yeah.
Even though he's been driven to this from a very different place to her. Mm-hmm. He's doing this. I mean, I don't know how admirable you can be in digging up a grave and exhuming someone to steal something from them, but he seems to be doing it from a slightly more principled place than she is. Yeah,
he wants to hear this piece.
When is it okay to dig up a body and take something out of the coffin? If it's art.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's art that the world should experience. He wants to study it, or he wants to conduct it. Which is interesting because he knows it's not finished. Like, what does he think he's going to conduct? A piece that abruptly ends?
Yeah.
And doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, what's his plan at this point with getting it finished? And it also doesn't fulfill that part of him that is missing, which was to be a composer. That's what we learned earlier on, where it's like his dream was to compose. It wasn't to conduct. It wasn't to study yet another piece by Burnham, which is what he's already done.
Yes.
Like, I imagine he's done that for the eight symphonies so far. So it's kind of repeating the pattern that he's got stuck in already.
Yeah.
So,
that's his curse.
That's his curse, yeah.
Well, I guess actually composing this breaks his curse.
Yeah.
Whilst at the same time giving him over to a new curse.
Yeah.
She tries to run off with it. Come back, Derbyshire.
Yeah. So is in some ways Chekhov's getting the name wrong.
Chekhov's getting the snappy, isn't it?
Because that's what brings her back.
Chekhov's wrong naming. Brings her, and then he hits her with a spade.
Yeah.
And he starts to bury her. And then her eyes open up and she's still alive, and he carries on.
It's so grim.
There's the next horror moment.
Yeah. And you hear a clock chiming 9 times.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. And there's
that's running late then.
We might have missed the first one because there's a cut. So it might cut in.
No, what I mean is that she was meant to go to bed at 9. The implication was she was going to bed late.
Yeah. So it might be 10.
But then
or 11.
Then we're a bit later.
Yeah. So, but I don't think, like, in terms of the actual playback, you only hear 9 chimes, but we might have not heard.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
Other ones.
The first and second ones.
Yeah. Because it kind of cuts in. I can't remember where it cuts in. It's like when he's.
It's a lot of digging going on.
Yeah. And there's like these weird, almost serpenty noises. You can hear the sounds of like phantom sounds and the curse sort of coming into land as he's, just murdered somebody. Or kind of, it's so great. Like buried alive.
Buried alive. Well, we've already had a buried alive this episode, this series, haven't we?
We have, yeah. There's another one.
Going all in on buried alive.
Buried alive. Buried alive. Buried alive.
So then we kind of get a cut for some time. And we see him come back to the house, having been on a leave of absence.
Bit more dishevelled this time.
Yes, he's not in the best of health. And there's kind of this hint that something's sort of come over him and things aren't all right. And I think Van Ass so good. Says later on, like, is it the curse or is it the guilt of murdering a girl and burying her underground that's kind of overcome you? And that's something I think it's weird because the whole episode is kind of sowing these seeds of skepticism around the curse, yet at the same time giving it a physical form that throws people off stairwells. Like, there's all this stuff that says it's not a thing. Like, there are lots of other reasons why you might be driven to madness from the way you behave, but actually, no, there is one.
Yeah.
He's there.
Which we see, but are we really seeing it? And and that, it's like, does the curse itself throw her off the balcony, or does she sort of stumble backwards because of the fright of it? And actually, it's not a...
Just be careful around the curse.
Physical thing.
I think that's the thing. The curse doesn't... Yeah, the curse, we don't actually see the curse kill anyone, do we?
No, because even at the beginning, it just disappears. And
with his little face, I can't imagine him killing anyone.
No, I think he's just trying to get attention of like, hey, I don't really like being a curse. Hello.
No, you think he sounds?
Yeah, it does. It looks like he sounds a bit like that. Yeah.
It doesn't take long for their plan to be revealed, does it, in this scene?
No, they're sort of planting
being one word for this.
when Mrs. Burnham's like saying about Devonshire, she's gone to ground. Gone to ground,
you might say.
And it's very flippant.
Yes.
And, not particularly concerned. So it's like, they know what's happened exactly. And then there's Dickie sat in the chair by the fire, like quite menacing.
Yes.
A menacing look. What's his greeting? It's a great greeting.
Howdy do.
Heidi ho, or like I can't
Heidi hi.
There's something
like that.
Yeah.
Howdy do.
So they want him to check the piano by playing the manuscript that he found in the piano, and he says that he'll struggle with that because he's not very good at sight reading. But they push him to do so anyway, and then while he's playing, his guilt causes him to see that apparition of Devonshire, which is quite grim.
Yes.
There was another horror moment for you there. Yeah. Bang. Jump scare. Which I will always associate with Reese shouting it at Steve in Deadline. She's not coming back, is she? And that was asked not as a rhetorical thing, as an actual question to him.
Yeah.
No, still rhetorical, I guess. But more
it is.
Rhetorical question. She's not coming back, is she? So they know he killed her. And that gives them leverage, says Van Ass. He doesn't really understand leverage in what respect.
And we get that classic explainer moment where Van Ass does the reveal that you get at the end of like a murder mystery type of thing.
A Poirot.
We knew that Devonshire was greedy. We hoped she might encourage you to dig up the manuscript, but we didn't expect you to kill her. Still, gives us more leverage, I suppose.
What do you mean, leverage?
I've been auditing the accounts, and it appears that Lillian's been living beyond her means. To put it bluntly, she's broke. She needs a lot of money quickly, and the unexpected discovery of her late husband's final work could be just the ticket, as they say.
Yes, well, I'll give it back to you. I wanted to return it anyway. I think it's that's been making me ill.
Perhaps. That and the guilt of murdering a defenseless young woman.
And it was quite interesting because, he says that Devonshire's greed was used to encourage, like, essentially, Devonshire's greed
Oh, okay, so here's the answer to the question
was
from earlier.
yeah.
They used her as well.
And I was thinking, is it greed? Or is it a comment on like class division? You know, she's obviously lower than them, and she knows that, and she's made to know that. She obviously didn't care about art in this pompous way that the people who don't have to worry about
obviously feel like it should be appreciated.
Yeah. And actually the true greed is Mrs. Burnham, who needs money quickly because she's been living beyond her means.
Broke.
So she's been, by all accounts, the greedy one. But it's held differently. It's like seen as, no, she was greedy because she's an opportunist or whatever.
For her greed.
Greed is allowed to exist differently between different classes.
That's true. What's kind of interesting here is the way that the curse is used as a... If this has been made up and she and Mrs. Burnham doesn't really believe it's a thing, as kind of they're suggesting is the case as part of kind of this plan. To tell someone you want them to complete something that you need them to complete because the person that was trying to complete it shot themselves in the head because it was so awful doesn't feel like a great move in some respects. You're creating an element of jeopardy that doesn't necessarily need to be there by telling him about this curse. Because if it was just he died while he was trying to complete this.
That's really true.
He's buried out there with it. Do you fancy completing it for us, please? Is a bit more of a sell than he killed himself while he was trying to complete it. And if you do it, you might end up wanting to kill yourself as well. I think you should complete it for us. That sounds like they've made that a very difficult proposition.
That's really true. Yeah.
Keep that on the down low. Keep the curse stuff.
Yeah, because he's an easy sell as a fan of Burnham, and he studied the music. He knows what it's all about.
I think I just broke the episode.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
It's an unnecessary detail.
Yeah.
That could come back at the end, but doesn't need to be part of the...
Yeah, I wonder.
Does it?
I don't know. I'd like to do a rewatch and see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does he need to know about the curse?
Because if he doesn't know about the curse, he might be more amenable to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And not feeling like he's dying because of it. And not feeling like he's been gripped by something and
because
therefore shouldn't go near it.
Digging up the grave would still happen if he doesn't need to know that there was a curse involved in his death to be motivated to dig up the manuscript.
Because it could just say he didn't finish it, but he didn't want the world to hear it. And so he was buried with it.
Yeah, there's a story you could
mention the curse.
You could, yeah.
Oh no! How long ago was it that I said I'm willing to call out?
They might have had to pay him if they'd done it in a less. Because now they've got leverage to get.
Well, the leverage is that he killed someone. The leverage is that he buried someone alive.
Oh yeah, that's not even what they. Yeah. Oh jeez. Yeah. That's true.
We'll continue. We'll work with what we've got. So he like this is the thing, though. At this point, he believes he's gripped by the curse, and Van Ass kind of gives him the: "Are you, or are you just racked with guilt for killing someone? Like, is this actually just guilt playing out for you?"
Yeah.
And then they lock him in the room to work.
Do. And Jonah can feel Death's hand on his shoulder, which is better than a policeman's hand on his shoulder, according to Dickie.
Which would you prefer?
Yeah.
Is it? Actually. Is it? If you were told either arrested or dead.
It depends on your what you think the answer to that question is.
Again, they've created a situation where he's got to choose between jail or death, or I guess it could be death if it's at this point they might have been executing for murder. Okay, but that's the thing. So death or death potentially, but they've created a situation where, as far as he is aware, he finishes this, he's dead.
Yeah,
and they've created that situation, not him.
Yeah,
they've created the choice between death or policeman.
It could have been do what we want you to do or policeman.
Yes.
Like finish the symphony or policeman.
But now it's death or policeman.
Death or policeman.
Death or policeman. Let's play a game. Death or policeman.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. So yeah, then we're in the piano room and Nathaniel is talking to Jonah in a very just a normal way now. You think
lots of technical language here.
Yes.
A lot of it went over my head, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think it's
I can decode a lot of it, but it would.
It's if you go slow with it, it's like yeah, it all makes sense.
And you were kind of relating it to the potentially creative process behind 9.
Well, I do wonder. So, like, just all this, it's not the beginning; it's the final movement. Remember, have you studied what's gone before?
Yes, we have. It's our job at this point.
Yeah. And so then he says, build on it, a modified sonata form, a false recapitulation. So a false recapitulation would be essentially an extension of the development of the piece. So a recapitulation would take what has been in the exposition and the development of the piece. So the themes and motifs that you hear would be returned to.
Why false?
That
what makes it
so
false?
you're developing. There's new things that come through.
Okay, so you feel like you're getting something back, something's returning, but actually it's not quite the same.
Yeah, you're going somewhere new.
It turns into something
else. It's all developing in itself. So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like
that's interesting if you think about how many times we've talked about themes that we've seen returning and little nods to things that have come before in this series, and
yeah,
whether it's camera techniques or whether it's devices being used, things like that. That's quite interesting.
Because that's what, with this series feels like a recapitulation of previous episodes. But then, are we being fed something about it's a false recapitulation? And also, have you studied what's gone before? Especially when we're looking to, at this stage, when we don't know what the 6th episode is going to be. What's gone before? There's been the surprises. There's been those moments where it's like gone in a completely different direction to anyone would expect. And so you're in this stage at the moment where everybody's theorizing. It's like, oh, it's going to be this, or it's going to be, I hope it's this. And yeah,
I feel like Deadline has created a real rod for their own back when it comes to finishing this, because that was so spectacular. And the fact that people still turn that on iPlayer and go, screws up.
Yeah.
This screws up partway through. Why have they put this up? To do that and then go, we're keeping the final episode under wraps and you don't know what it's going to be and it's going to be something, is mad.
Or is it going to be nothing?
Because
they don't want to complete the symphony.
Imagine if they just show sardines again.
Yeah,
imagine you turn it on and everyone, what?
It'd be a return to the tonic.
It would be a return to the tonic. Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah. It looked like it was going somewhere new and it just went back to the beginning.
The second subject in the strings, a sequence resolved with a plagal cadence.
Where's the risk? The final movement mustn't be timid. Fragmentation, inversion, imitation within the woodwinds. Use the diminished sevenths to imply the secondary dominant.
Underneath, a return to the drone and the brass as before. As in the exposition, Yes, this is it. hear it.
It's satisfying, isn't it?
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Why are you helping me?
So it's interesting. Yeah, why are you helping me? This line.
Why are you helping me?
Why are you helping me? It amuses me. I want to see how far you get before it grips you. It's interesting. He sees his presence and this kind of version of him that he never saw, because he wouldn't have ever seen him having just killed himself covered in blood. You'd have thought he'd have remembered him like in his pomp, dressed up in a concert hall. But instead he's returning, like his vision of him is as he was having shot himself in the face.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Like he's got him in curse form, not in prime form.
So is he a new curse?
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, though, isn't it? His the way the conversation they have is doing the curse job. So he's here to help him and explain how he should go about finishing it.
Yeah.
Which, again, is this why? Is this just the torture of the creative process to create something incredible that you have to go through? And it does help you, but it also has the other effect.
Yeah.
I want to see how far you get before it grips you. This is your torment, not mine.
Yeah.
He's passed it over now. I'm free of this. I killed myself. I let it go. Your turn.
And then he starts poking at those things like you never tried.
Yes.
And kind of recapitulating the excuses and the reasons that came through that development of this.
I watched this thinking he's a really shit coach. Is what he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've said to me that just creativity never struck. Is that because you're a coward?
Yeah.
Is it because you're a coward? Because actually it takes an act of courage to create anything. And you, boy, are a coward.
You're a coward. You never try.
Never try.
You're scared.
But it's that it's forcing that. It's like an inner monologue, isn't it? Where he's maybe this is all the curse is that it's just this realization of all of your shortcomings and that you're struggling with this because you were never good enough. In fact, it doesn't matter that those 8 previous ones, you are worthless because you can't complete this.
Yeah.
Think of all these things that you've ever said that are the reason as to why you're here now and you can't do this. Yeah. That's what the curse is. It's the just voice in your head.
You with all of that stuff that you don't like about yourself and that you don't want to look at. And the
curse of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I was interesting, in the language, the food for the conqueror worms.
Mm.
That's quite a line that, it almost stood out as very dramatic and very,
it's pronounced, isn't it?
Very much so.
And what was the other thing that made me think of what are we going to get on Wednesday? It was when he's humming the melody that he's coming up with, and then Burnham's like, "There's no risk. The final movement mustn't be timid." And so this sense of like you're playing it safe, like at the end, as we reach the end of Inside Number 9, don't play it safe. It can't be timid. Like,
no, it's true.
What are we going to get?
What is happening?
Yeah.
Are they just gonna set fire to that cinema? Didn't see this coming, did you?
Oh, what is going to happen? And then eventually he turns the bust. He puts the bust in the corner, doesn't he, and turns it away from him. So it's as if he's been conversing with that as whether that's an enchanted object that has brought out the ghost of Burnham, or as you say, because he's seeing him as we've seen him, as he hadn't seen him. So
this could be a Christmas ghost story, couldn't it?
It does have that sort of.
It feels like it could be. Yeah. If there was some snow outside the window during all this would be ripe for December release.
Yeah, it would actually. Yeah.
So yeah.
And then we get a little montage of him completing the symphony.
So did the wife choose him because the curse is real?
Oh yeah, have that conversation. Yeah.
But did she? I'm going to return to it because now it's there, seeded. Even if she thinks it is real, is it in her interest to reveal it to him?
No, I know I think that there's something in that.
I'd like to know. I'd like to know if other people can kind of deal with this for us.
Yeah, because the question is, why didn't Lillian complete it herself if she thought the curse wasn't real? Which
she knows it's probably beyond her.
Yeah, because that's suggesting that she would be able to. So does Nathaniel know something that we don't? That actually she was a really accomplished musician and could have completed it herself, or does that mean she didn't complete it by getting another composer to help complete it? Or because actually at the end you see the act of completion is her having used Jonah as an instrument essentially.
Mm-hmm. But then he kind of
he's smirking at
pulls
the act of completion.
The act of completion.
Giggling away over.
Stop! You've called me out far too much this episode. You'll see. Yeah, because she kind of feels like she's got him at this point. So she comes into the study and she finds him possibly dead on the desk.
Yeah.
She wakes him up, offers him some breakfast, and he reveals that he's actually finished. And she's quite smug about this.
I don't think she intends to wake him up. She's trying to take the manuscript from him, isn't she? Yeah.
Which she could have done and dealt with, but actually no, she couldn't. So he then seems to have had a realization that the curse can affect you, but doesn't ultimately get you unless you put in the final piece.
Yeah.
So this is where the gotcha happens, where he hands her the last page to put in, and she doesn't think for 1 minute. Hang on a minute. This is a bit odd.
It's the way he does that is brilliant.
It is because
it does look like he's just forgotten about that piece that they knew was there because he was playing the piano. He was playing it yesterday or whenever it was at the piano. So it's like, oh yeah, don't forget the page I found at the piano.
And it was her who delivered the line about a piece not being completed until you put the final piece in. That's nice. The fact that she's fully aware that a piece isn't complete until you put in the final piece. She knows that because she told us earlier, and then he spins that back on her. Is a nice touch. And so there's we get this kind of foreboding sense that she realizes what has just been done to her. She's had that.
Yeah, when she slams the manuscript, it's like, those words that I knew would... it's too late. Whoops.
Can't say it was easy, but after the initial block, it began to flow. Here, don't forget the page I found in the piano.
Thank you.
The picture isn't complete until the last piece goes in.
Of course. Oh.
Congratulations, Mrs. Burnham. You just finished your husband's 9th symphony. Just as well you don't believe in all that poppycock about a curse.
Chekhov's act of completion. From earlier. And this is where we get... So I think what was quite interesting, actually, so in relation to this bit, music plays a real part in this next section here. And I think because I was so focused on dialogue, I don't think I paid enough attention to the music all the way through, which is weird considering this is a piece that is based around
I think Christian Henson had an absolute blast in this one.
There is one thing that I wanted to hear, which was that part of this symphony involved the music, the title music.
Well, do you know what?
But I would have hated it if I
I'm
had.
intrigued to put it together because it's the end. So the music in the credits at the end is in the same key as the title music.
Oh, is it? Do you reckon it might be in there somewhere?
I don't think the actual motif is, but I reckon they'll go really nicely together. So I want to kind of put them together.
I was waiting for it, and I kind of wanted it, but I know I would have.
No, you'd have hated that.
Well, the thing is, I would have felt exactly the same as I felt in the last episode where he said number 9.
Yeah.
It would have been exactly the same feeling of, that was a bit obvious, wasn't it?
No, I'm really glad that they didn't do that.
You think I would have gone? Oh no!
I think I would have. I would have. Like, it would have been too on the nose. Like, yeah, no, I didn't want that
Find some stuff together. It's been there in the background all along. I don't know. But yeah, this scene, the music is big and really good. This kind of sense of her being followed up the stairs as the lights start flickering and she's walking up the stairs just with this realization of what's just happened. We catch a glimpse in the mirror as she walks past it.
That's great.
I went back again to see if she had a reflection at any point and tried to figure out whether we should have seen a reflection of her at any point in there because we didn't. I was trying to think, should we have maybe seen something of her?
Oh,
and I don't know because I felt like she kind of swung out of shot with the mirror there, as though we might have caught a glimpse of her in the mirror, but we didn't. And I wondered if there was anything in that. Vampire. She's a vampire.
Unless the mirror is like at an angle,
and
he's at a different. He's like higher.
So I might have been over searching at that point. Then we see a glimpse of him behind her on the stairs.
I love the shadow.
Yes,
because there's been
following her.
They've talked about the shadow, haven't they? Like he feels like the shadow of the curse is looming,
which it very much is.
Yeah,
and then I like the I like the idea that the curse likes to just sneak around you.
Yeah.
You turn around, try and see him. He swings around the back. You turn around. He's there, looming over you. You fall off some stairs.
He's seen some horror movies. He knows what to do.
But yeah,
it's
his
never
face,
the first turn.
When you do pause it, he does look surprised. He looks like a surprised curse.
He's a surprised curse. I'm as surprised as anybody to be cursing this situation.
He looks as terrified of her as he is, as she is of him at that point.
Yeah,
like they say, like that's that spider. He's as scared of you are. I think this curse is as frightened of the reaction that he gets.
Yeah,
he's trying to have a hug.
It's probably like, don't just stop trying to finish Ninth Symphonies. I don't enjoy this job. I have to keep coming out and doing this whole thing. And
it turns out I'm in your head anyway.
Yeah.
All I am is a bit of self-doubt. And then in the end, she falls on the floor and the symphony falls around.
A severe neck break.
Brutal.
Very brutal. Yeah. And Jonah is now free.
Supposedly. Or maybe he's dead. I don't know. Might go back down every episode. Maybe he's dead.
There's nothing to suggest.
But his eyes literally open. That would be the opposite of evidence that he's dead.
Walking around. But is he?
Is he? Well, I guess we'll never know.
Yeah.
That's ended up being quite a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Even though we have decimated the episode.
Yeah, no, I really love that. I think it works on different levels that I enjoy. And I enjoy things that I guess reflect on the creative process and that relationship between different entities in that. And just the whole act of creating and dealing with those inner demons and getting beyond them, or do they become such an obstacle that they stop you from creating that thing and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I really enjoy that.
But just don't think too much about whether the curse needed to be mentioned.
I'm going to need to go back and visit that and invite people to share their thoughts on
That was a really nice segue. Well done.
Thanks, mate. So ahead of our season wrap-up, I guess we'll do a season wrap-up and then maybe a bunch of whole show wrap-ups. We'll approach that from different angles.
I don't know, because...
Talk about that.
I don't know what that'll look like.
No. But there are options. Yeah, there are options.
We gave every episode half an hour. 27 and a half hours of us.
Yeah, no, people. Yeah, it's a bit too much for people, isn't it? Actually. But
Unless
yeah, if you've got any thoughts,
to donate for it.
We'll get to that. Any responses to this episode or anything that we've said ahead of our wrap-up episode, please do email us, aquietnightinsideno9@gmail.com, or get in touch via Twitter @AQNIN9. And if you fancy throwing us a few quid to keep the show going, cover some hosting costs, have your name mentioned at the top of the episode, then there's a PayPal link in the show notes. So we'd be very grateful to anyone that can do that. Thank you in advance. Anything else to say before we finish here?
Other than next week will be the last time we react for the first time to an Inside Number 9 episode.
That's so sad.
It is. But mad.
Sad and mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see what this week brings.
We'll see you on the other side.
See you on the other side. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.